You will never be rich. And the reason is not out there in the economy, the government, or the opportunities available to others. The real reason lives within you, quietly shaping your choices, your habits, your fears, your desires. People imagine that wealth is something to be achieved through effort, struggle, or strategy. And yes, those things matter, but only on the surface. Deep down, the only true barrier between you and abundance is the inner poverty you carry unconsciously. Money is never the real issue. Consciousness is. You have been conditioned to chase money the way people chase mirages in a desert. The more you run after it, the more it escapes, and the thirst becomes unbearable. You want money because you believe it will fix something inside you. Your insecurity, your longing to be seen, your hunger for validation. But money cannot fill the emptiness of a self you have never met. Without inner clarity, even millions will feel insufficient. And without inner worth, even opportunities placed in your hands will slip away unnoticed. People chase money without understanding themselves first, and this is the tragedy of the modern mind. From a very young age, you are conditioned to believe that success, security, respect, and fulfillment lie somewhere outside you, waiting to be acquired. You run after money as though it were the gateway to your own worth, the key that will unlock the version of you that finally feels whole. But what you do not see is that the chase itself comes from a deep inner confusion. You don't run after money because you truly desire money. You run because you do not know who you are without it. The pursuit becomes a distraction, a convenient escape from the uncomfortable silence within. When you do not understand yourself, your desires are borrowed, your ambitions are second-hand, and your goals are stitched together from the expectations of your family, society, and culture. You chase the image of success, not success itself. You want money because others want it, because the world praises those who have it, because it gives you the illusion of importance. But the one thing you never ask is whether the chase aligns with your nature, whether the desire arises from your own inner truth or from the pressure to fit in. A goal that does not come from your own essence will always lead to exhaustion, not richness. Money becomes a symbol rather than a resource. It becomes the proof of your adequacy, the measure of your value, the reassurance that you are not behind. And when you chase money from this place, you chase it with fear. Fear of failing, fear of being nothing, fear of being invisible. Fear creates urgency, desperation, and endless anxiety, and a mind that is anxious cannot create abundance. A fearful mind clings to shortcuts, imitates others, and remains blind to its own unique path. Understanding yourself means discovering what truly moves you, what brings you alive, what aligns with your natural talents and energies. Without this understanding, you build a life that looks good from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. You end up with achievements you cannot celebrate, wealth that does not soothe your restlessness, success that feels like an accident rather than an expression of your real potential. You may accumulate money, but you will not feel rich. People who know themselves do not chase money, they attract it. Their wealth arises from clarity. They choose work that resonates with their inner calling, and work done with presence becomes powerful. They make decisions from awareness instead of insecurity, and awareness naturally leads to opportunities that reflect their growth. When you understand yourself, your actions are aligned, your focus is steady, and your energy is not scattered between 1,000 borrowed desires. This alignment creates a magnetic field around you. People trust you, ideas flow through you, and life responds to your inner coherence. But without self-understanding, money becomes the substitute for meaning, and substitutes can never satisfy. You become rich in stress but poor in spirit. You might earn more, but you become less. You chase endlessly because the one thing you are trying to escape, your own inner emptiness, follows you everywhere. Only when you turn inward, when you begin to understand your own mind, your own fears, your own truth, does the chase lose its power. Then money stops being a destination and becomes simply a tool, a companion, a consequence of a life lived in harmony with yourself. Inner poverty creates outer poverty because life mirrors the state of your inner world with remarkable precision. People imagine that their lack comes from circumstances, from limited opportunities, from an unfair world, from the luck they never received. But long before poverty appears in one's bank account, it already lives in one's consciousness. The mind that feels small, unworthy, incapable, or dependent will create a life that reflects those beliefs. Outer poverty is simply the physical expression of inner limitation. When your inner space is filled with doubt, fear, and scarcity, you unconsciously shape choices that reinforce those very conditions. You hesitate where you should move, you settle where you should rise, you cling where you should let go, and you repeat cycles that keep you exactly where you are. A person who is inwardly poor cannot see possibilities, even when they appear right in front of them. Their perception is clouded by the belief that nothing good can come to them, that success is for others, that abundance is something distant. This inner narrative becomes a lens that distorts reality. Opportunities seem too risky, growth seems too difficult, and change seems too threatening. The mind closes itself to anything unfamiliar, and in that closure, life remains stagnant. Outer poverty often persists not because there are no paths out, but because the mind refuses to take the first step. Inner poverty also manifests as a lack of creativity. When you are burdened by survival thinking, when your thoughts are constantly occupied with fear and scarcity, your ability to imagine, innovate, or create disappears. Creativity arises from spaciousness, from confidence, from an inner sense of sufficiency. A mind trapped in lack cannot produce ideas that lead to expansion. It repeats old patterns, clings to familiar routines, and avoids anything that demands growth. In this way, inner poverty becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. There is also an emotional dimension to poverty. People who feel unworthy often sabotage their own progress. They turn away from opportunities because they secretly believe they do not deserve them. They stay in jobs that diminish them, relationships that drain them, or habits that limit them because deep down their inner poverty tells them, this is all you will ever have. When you believe you are small, you attract experiences that confirm your smallness. When you believe you are undeserving, life will reflect that belief back to you again and again. Inner poverty becomes especially powerful when it is partnered with comparison. The moment you compare yourself to others, you shrink inside. You begin to measure your worth externally, and every measurement brings disappointment. This inner contraction affects your energy, your decisions, and even your presence. You walk into life already defeated, already convinced that you have less, are less, and will remain less. Such a mindset cannot create abundance. It can only maintain lack. But when someone begins to cultivate inner richness, confidence, clarity, gratitude, self-respect, their outer world gradually transforms. They make bolder choices, take meaningful risks, align with opportunities, and meet life with openness. Inner richness gives birth to outer abundance. Outer wealth is never the beginning. It is only the echo. The real treasure is formed within long before it appears outside. Comparison, fear, and greed destroy real abundance, because each of these states creates a contraction within you, a shrinking of your natural capacity to receive, create, and flow with life. Abundance is not something you chase. It is something you tune into, something you align with. But the moment comparison enters your heart, you disconnect from your own path. You start measuring your worth against someone else's journey, forgetting that every human being is walking a completely different road. Comparison blinds you to your own uniqueness. It makes you resent what others have instead of appreciating what is growing within you. When your eyes are always on someone else's success, your inner vision becomes blurred. You begin living a life that is not yours, chasing goals that were never meant for you, and in doing so, you lose the inner harmony required for abundance to unfold. Fear is an even deeper poison. A fearful person cannot trust life, cannot trust their own abilities, and cannot trust the unfolding of their path. Fear makes you cling to security instead of reaching for possibilities. It makes you choose survival over expansion. A fearful mind hesitates, procrastinates, and resists change. It stays in comfort zones that slowly suffocate potential. Fear creates a narrow inner world, and abundance cannot enter a mind that has closed itself off. When fear dominates your decisions, you behave as though life is an enemy, as though every step forward is dangerous. You become defensive, guarded, and reactive, unable to see the opportunities hidden within challenges. And in that state, life simply mirrors your inner contraction, giving you experiences that match your fear, keeping you in circumstances that feel tight and limiting. Greed, on the other hand, masquerades as ambition, but in reality emerges from the same inner poverty as fear. Greed arises when you believe there is not enough, when you assume that if someone else wins, you must lose. Greed makes you hoard instead of share, calculate instead of create, manipulate instead of collaborate. A greedy mind cannot relax. It is always hungry, always restless, always chasing more. But the paradox is that the more you chase out of greed, the more abundance escapes you. Life does not reward grasping, it rewards openness. Greed closes your heart and narrows your vision. It makes you focus on possession rather than expression, on accumulation rather than contribution. And true abundance grows through contribution, through the willingness to give, through the freedom to let things flow in and out of your life without fear. When comparison, fear, and greed dominate your inner world, you live in constant tension. You are never satisfied, never peaceful, never in tune with your own nature. Abundance is a state of inner relaxation, an ease that allows life to move through you without resistance. But comparison keeps you restless, fear keeps you frozen, and greed keeps you grasping. Together, these states create an inner climate of scarcity, and scarcity inevitably reflects outward. Abundance cannot coexist with a mind that believes it is lacking. Only when comparison dissolves into appreciation, fear melts into trust, and greed transforms into generosity, does life open its vastness to you. Wealth comes to those who are inwardly free, not desperate, because abundance is attracted to a mind that is open, relaxed, and rooted in its own worth. Desperation carries the energy of lack, and lack repels everything that could truly elevate you. When you act from desperation, you are not choosing, you are escaping, you are not creating, you are clinging. You grasp at opportunities not because they are aligned with your deeper nature, but because you are terrified of failure, terrified of being left behind, terrified of not becoming someone in the eyes of the world. A desperate person cannot wait, cannot observe, cannot trust the unfolding of life. Their inner restlessness clouds their judgment, making them chase whatever appears shiny, temporary, or convenient. And in that rush, they miss the very paths that could have brought real wealth. Inner freedom, however, brings a completely different quality to life. A person who is inwardly free is not enslaved by the opinions of others, not driven by insecurity and not shaped by fear. Their actions arise from clarity, not pressure. They choose work that resonates with their nature, and when you function from your own authenticity, you operate with a different kind of power. Your creativity is alive, your intelligence is sharp, and your presence is magnetic. Inner freedom allows you to act without the heaviness of expectation, and action taken from freedom becomes effortless, precise, and aligned. Such action naturally leads to success because it is not forced, it is allowed. People who are desperate about wealth often sabotage themselves without realizing it. They rush into partnerships that drain them, cling to jobs that diminish them, or make impulsive decisions that come from panic rather than purpose. Their mindset is filled with "what if I fail?" and that very fear shapes their reality. A desperate mind cannot take meaningful risks because it is too attached to immediate outcomes. It fears loss so deeply that it chooses smallness again and again, mistaking it for safety. But safety is the enemy of growth. A life lived in desperation becomes a cycle of struggle, exhaustion, and disappointment. Inward freedom creates a spaciousness that allows abundance to enter naturally. When you are free, you are not trying to prove anything. You are not chasing validation. You are not seeking completion outside yourself. You engage with life from fullness, and fullness attracts fullness. Wealth gravitates toward people who radiate confidence, calmness, and inner stability because these qualities make you trustworthy, decisive, and grounded. Opportunities open for those who are not constantly begging life for more, but are ready to meet life as it comes. Desperation makes you a beggar. Inner freedom makes you a creator. Desperation says, "I need something to complete me." Inner freedom says, "I am already whole, and whatever comes will only expand me." The universe responds differently to these two states. A mind filled with inner freedom becomes a channel for abundance, a space where ideas grow, solutions appear, and actions flow without resistance. Inward freedom gives you the courage to walk your own path, to wait for the right timing, to trust your instincts, and to act with presence rather than panic. And it is this inner state, not outer effort alone, that determines whether wealth becomes a struggle or a natural unfolding. True richness is a state of consciousness, not accumulation, because wealth is ultimately an inner experience, not an external measurement. You can possess mountains of money and still feel empty, insecure, or afraid of losing what you have. You can live surrounded by luxury and still be restless, constantly seeking more, never satisfied with what is already present. Accumulation gives comfort, yes, but comfort is not richness. Richness is the capacity to live with depth, with awareness, with gratitude, with a sense of inner abundance that no circumstance can shake. When your consciousness is rooted in fullness, you do not depend on the outer world to validate your worth. You become the source of your own richness. People confuse accumulation with abundance because they have been conditioned to believe that more equals better. But more is an endless pursuit. No amount ever feels enough, because the hunger behind it does not come from the heart, but from fear. The fear of not having, the fear of being less, the fear of becoming insignificant. Fear creates greed, and greed blinds you to the richness already available in the present moment. You keep chasing a horizon that always moves further away. Even with wealth, the mind remains anxious, constantly protecting, counting, comparing. This is not richness. This is imprisonment disguised as success. True richness arises when your consciousness becomes spacious and free, when you can appreciate life without needing to own it, when you can enjoy moments without trying to capture them, when you can be so deeply present that every experience becomes vivid, alive, and nourishing. A person with an abundant consciousness carries a sense of inner security that does not depend on external numbers. They trust themselves, trust life, trust the unfolding of their path. In that trust, they find a peace that no possession can provide. Richness is the ability to give without fear of losing, to share without calculating, to live without grasping. It is the inner strength that allows you to be generous with your time, your attention, your compassion, your talents. When you are inwardly rich, you do not shrink when others succeed. You celebrate it because your sense of abundance does not diminish when someone else receives. Your wealth is not dependent on comparison. It is a self-generated state of being. Accumulation, on the other hand, often leads to attachment. You begin to identify with what you own. You fear loss because loss threatens your identity. The more you accumulate from an unconscious state, the more fragile you become. The ego feeds on possession, but the soul thrives on freedom. True richness has nothing to do with how much you hold, but with how lightly you can live. It is measured by your capacity to be joyful without reason, peaceful without guarantees, fulfilled without external achievements. A person who lives with a rich consciousness can walk through life with a sense of inner celebration. They can find beauty in simplicity, opportunity in difficulty, and meaning in stillness. Their richness is not dependent on conditions. It shines from within. And when someone is inwardly rich, outer abundance naturally follows, not as a goal but as a reflection of their inner state.